get rid of resentments. We can do all the work in ourselves and we can try to better ourselves and get the right perspective. But if we're burdened down by resentments, and what do I mean by that is carrying resentments about anything, whether it be a person that cheated on you, the person that stole from you, the parent that abandoned you. I've heard this great thing of that. There's certainly no accidental kids, there's accidental parents. We know that for a fact. But
right.
All the habits, hurts, and hangups that people have, and the resentments that grow, people that were abusive to you, and all the things that you've justified in your heart that give you the right to harbor this resentment. I think it's critical to really get rid of resentments if we want to spring forward and really be our true selves and live out the potential that God's put us on this planet for. And I would suggest that those resentments will always lead to despair. If we don't deal with them, eventually that'll burn its course, and then we're full of despair and anxiety and depression and hopelessness, right? And I would say, as an analogy, no one's ever died of a snake bite. If you think about it, you can't be unbitten. Once you're bit, you're bit. But no one's ever died of the snake bite. It is the venom that circulates through your system after the bite that'll end up destroying you. So this idea about resentment and holding this ill will towards an event is like venom in your body. And it's like my dad said to me one time, bitterness only destroys a container that contains it. And sometimes you got to forgive for your sake, not necessarily the other person's sake, right, but for your own sake.
Man, that analogy is perfect. Both of them, the snake and the container. We have a limited amount of real estate, and that real estate is kind of our heart. And the question is, I'm very outcomes based, and this can frustrate people because I don't agree with everybody the way that they want to be agreed with. I can partially agree, but I'm very rarely do I fully agree with a certain person or idea. Because my question is, what is the outcome you desire? And if you want a happier life and you have limited real estate on your heart, if you give an acre to resentment, you are limiting the amount of peace that you're able to have. Now, that doesn't mean just rip it off and throw it away. It means work through it. Work through it. Understand that the goal, the outcome is to feel better. The outcome is your peace. The outcome is that you can become a better parent because you won't harbor it. It's that you can become a better citizen because you won't harbor it. And so what happens is go into it, not just cut it off, not just ignore it. Go into it and say, how do I get rid of this? Because the outcome I desire is peace. The outcome that I desire is a better life for me and those that I love. And so when you come in with an outcome base, it frees you up to know what your next move is. When I work with a client, if I'm about to do a speech, I have an outcomes and expectations survey, and it's very specific. One of the questions it asks is, what do you want the audience to feel as soon as it's over? What do you want them to say as soon as it's over? And what do you want them to do 2 weeks after it's done? Because I want it to last. I don't want them to think about what they want them to do immediately. What do you want them doing 2 weeks afterwards? They don't even think about these things. They just say, I want it to go well and da-da-da. When they ask and answer those questions, I gain clarity and they gain clarity. And then when we talk about it, it becomes more crystallized. And so I all of a sudden know what I need to do to have that outcome. Outcome-based existence is one of the best ways to be, because what happens is you're not frozen in the ideas. You're just frozen in what the outcomes are. Now, of course, it doesn't mean, the ends justify the means. But what I'm saying is, by having that clarity, I don't want to feel this pain in my heart, and I don't want it to bleed on other people. So let me find a way to find that peace. That is the freedom that you gain by understanding that what you want to feel, what you're hoping and aiming to be, what you want, what kind of peace you want to experience. It'll dictate what your next steps need to be.
Boy, that's powerful. Reminds me of the movie Mask with Jim Carrey. And I remember when it came out, it was a lot of fun to watch. And I was just a young pup at the time. And he put that mask on and this wild, crazy person would come out. And I think it's sort of metaphorically speaking, apropos, because whether it's alcohol, you can see a different mask come on people, right? They get sad, they get happy, they get violent, they get a lot of things. Or you can see the person that maybe is carrying resentment that turned them into an epic bodybuilder. Or they ended up becoming an epic, business person with a lot of money, and they're going to let people know they made it, right? We see that all the time in social media. I was here, and now I'm here, and you left me, and I turned into a doctor. Or I set the course of my world on fire, and that's good, right? But there was a book written by Patanjali. He's a Hindu author and mystic. And he had an observation almost 2,000 years ago. He said, if you become steadfast in your abstentions of thoughts of harm directed towards others, all living creatures will cease to feel enmity in your presence, right? And this means no more blame. I'm not going to assign responsibility to others for where I am. And I would argue that when we do that, we take our own power away. If I'm locked in a place and time where this person hurt me, and as a result, I'm now going to become this person to prove I was worthy enough, you may get to that point and realize your ladder's against a fundamentally wrong wall. It wasn't your destiny to be there. But this event, because we're driven by animosity, resentment, whatever, took us in this direction. And guess what happens? We're more disillusioned. We're more bitter. We're more angry. We put all this time into this whatever, and it didn't give us the filling up of that empty hole in our heart, or it didn't fix that hurt, if you will, right? And if I think someone else caused it, I have to wait for someone else to change it, right? I'm giving them the power. And in order for me to get rid of it, I may have to wait for the rest of my life because that person may never forgive it, right? Yeah. So there is the opportunity to really say, wait a minute, resentment, get rid of it, right? Because by the way, the person or the event that hurt and did the greatest damage to you, they probably don't even think about it.
Right. And you're thinking about it all the time.
Think about it.
Yeah, man. You know, it's so funny that there's the danger in winning. And I don't think people realize that winning actually is one of the most dangerous things. If I get hurt by this person, and so I want to make sure that I'll get them back, and that's my drive for success. People are like, well, it worked. But yeah, but think about what mechanisms you've had to create. Now that you've seen that somebody making you feel bad is what gets you to be successful, that means your next trigger has to be finding another war. You're constantly looking for wars to prove yourself.
That's a good one.
You're always chasing.
Yeah.
You're always chasing. So what happens is, even when I was personal training back in the day, one of the things that I had to be careful of, I have a client who comes in who's insecure, right? Let's say that their girlfriend just cheated on them. And I've had this. They go, I want a six-pack. Give me a six-pack. I'm like, why do you want a six-pack? It's like, so I can get her back. And how is he going to get her back? By all of a sudden just being promiscuous with a bunch of women, taking advantage of other women. And I'm like, how is me building you up physically even worth it? It's a threat. I'm actually making you more voracious. I'm allowing you to take that insecurity and then flip it to totally exploit the insecurities of a bunch of